Welcome to this explainer where we're unpacking the war council at Moat Cailin, Robb Stark's gambit. Think about this for a second. A 15-year-old boy has to transform, basically overnight, into a seasoned military commander to face down literally the most ruthless army on the continent. It's an absolute masterclass in strategy, leveraging geography, and honestly facing the brutal realities of leadership. And the setting for this transformation? Well, when Sir Brendan Tully, who, remember, is a deeply seasoned veteran, first lays eyes on this northern gathering place, he's totally underwhelmed. He sees these ruins and thinks it's a joke, like, this is Moat Cailin? But Catelyn Stark cuts right through that with the cold truth. She finishes his sentence for him. It's a death trap.
Which brings us to Section 1, the ruins of Moat Cailin, a deceptive fortress.
So from a distance, you look at this place and it doesn't look like much of a fortress at all. The old wooden keep rotted away literally 1,000 years ago. Now there are just 3 towers left standing out of a legendary 20. You've got the Gatehouse, the Leaning Drunkard's Tower, and the Shattered Children's Tower. But as Catelyn knows, appearances are completely deceiving here. This ancient stronghold of the First Men is a total geographical nightmare. If you're an invading army, you're forced into this deadly bottleneck. You're wading through waist-deep black muck, trying to scale slippery, moss-covered walls, and braving quicksand and, moats teeming with sneaks and lizard lions. And the whole time, you're taking crossfire from archers up in those towers. It's just an impenetrable choke point. Let's move into Section 2, A Boy Leading Men, Robb Stark's Duality. Now, a fortress is really only as strong as its commander, right? And when Catelyn finally reunites with her son inside the Gatehouse Tower, she sees this really profound conflict of identity playing out in real time. On one hand, you have the 15-year-old boy. I mean, he was fighting with wooden swords less than a year ago. He misses his mom, and he's terrified for his captive father and sister down in King's Landing. When it's just the two of them, that proud lord facade totally melts away, and he's just a kid seeking his mother's answers. But on the other hand, he has to be the battle commander. He's actually grown a scraggly red beard just to try and look older. He's surrounded by these massive, dangerous Lord's Bannermen, guys like the Great John and Roose Bolton. He knows perfectly well that if he retreats, he avoids the immediate danger, sure, but he becomes a laughingstock and loses the respect of these seasoned men forever. And as Catelyn reminds him, laughter is poison to fear. The stakes here are absolutely astronomical because 18,000 is the exact number of men currently relying entirely on this teenager's tactical decisions. Just imagine the sheer weight of that imposter syndrome for a second. 18,000 lives hanging on a 15-year-old's choices. And remember, this isn't some professional standing army. We're talking about crofters, fishermen, sellswords, and knights. They came when they were called, absolutely, but they aren't going to stay forever, especially not sitting around in a barren, freezing bog. That leads us to Section 3, the Lannister Pinsar, the War in the Riverlands. So, with food supplies dwindling at Moat Cailin, sitting at waiting is no longer an option, especially because they're getting these grim, terrifying reports from the south about a massive, two-pronged Lannister threat. Look at what's happening here. Out west, you have Jaime Lannister, who just smashed the Riverlords, defeating Lords Vance and Piper at the Golden Tooth, and is currently chasing the survivors all the way back to Riverrun. Then you have his father, Tywin Lannister, bringing an even larger host up from the south. Tywin has already set a trap at the Mummers Ford, wiping out Derek and Raymond Derry, and now he's marching straight up the King's Road, closing it off and just burning the land as he goes. It's a highly organized pincer movement, and it's designed to completely crush the Riverlords before turning its sights on the north. Which brings us to Section 4, splitting the northern host, Robb's tactical gambit. Okay, so to face commanders of this caliber, Robb pulls out this ragged, faded leather map and reveals a shockingly audacious strategy to his mother. He knows he can't just march his 18,000 men straight into Tywin's larger, heavily armored force. So the plan is incredibly bold. Step 1, he leaves a small skeleton crew of archers right there at Moat Cailin to hold that defensive choke point. Step 2, he marches the bulk of the host south below the neck. But step 3 is the real kicker here. He plans to split his army in two at the Twins. He is literally going to put an impassable river, the Green Fork, between the two halves of his own army, relying entirely on Lord Frey's bridge to get his horsemen across. Then, for step 4, his foot soldiers will continue marching down the King's Road to engage and distract Tywin, while his cavalry races down the opposite, west bank, completely hidden by the river to completely blindside Jaime Lannister at Riverrun. Moving on to Section 5, Cold Cunning over Courage, Choosing the Commander.
Now, executing a trap like this requires the absolute perfect general to lead those foot soldiers. Their job isn't actually to win, it's to stall, distract, and somehow survive against the calculating, ruthless Tywin Lannister. Robb initially leans toward giving this command to the Great Jon, because the guy is fearless, right? But Catelyn steps in with some absolutely crucial mentorship here. She wisely points out that sending a boisterous, fearless man against Tywin would be a fatal misstep. A guy who has fought as many battles as Tywin Lannister isn't going to be surprised by a brute force charge. She tells Robb point blank, "You want cold cunning? I should think, not courage."
And Robb gets it immediately. He realizes the man for the job is Roose Bolton, Lord of the Dreadfort. If you know Roose, you know he's a bannerman with these curiously pale eyes and a voice so unsettlingly soft that larger men actually quiet down just to hear him speak. Robb even admits to his mother that Roose Bolton kind of scares him. In Catelyn's response, she says they must pray he scares Tywin Lannister as well. Bolton's cold, disturbing nature is exactly the kind of calculating obstacle they need to stall the Lannister forces.
So Robb has his plan, his commanders are set, and the northern host is finally ready to march. Before they leave, he offers his mother an escort back home to the safety of Winterfell, but she refuses. And we want to leave you with this final thought to ponder. Knowing her father is dying at Riverrun and her brother is completely surrounded by foes, why does Catelyn Stark ultimately choose to ride deeper into the war zone? Why turn her back on the safety of the North to ride alongside her son's army directly toward the Bleeding Riverlands? It's a haunting question about the inescapable pull of family and duty in wartime. Well, that wraps up our explainer for today. Until next time, keep analyzing the strategies that shape the board.